helpful for us to fashion something that fits our site pastor, our location, and our team. So, yes.
Okay. No, just regarding the children, has the attendance of the children in the junior and senior Sunday school increased, improved in any way?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. Does any, Lois? Lois is teaching.
Oh, well. No, we've been praying for years that the children get more and more children go down to the Sunday school.
And it may very well be increasing. I mean, in context, I've been here 5 months, and 2 of them are summer months. So I wish I could give you the answer to that. I just don't know the answer to that.
We just pray. We keep praying.
We keep making them, so they're coming.
Okay. Thank you for your contribution, Ryan. Yes.
I have a quick question about small groups. It's kind of specific, so forgive the broad population. Those of us involved with Ladies Bible Study Coffee Hour Wednesday mornings is a group of around approximately 20, an average of 20. Is that qualified as a small group, or should these ladies also be seeking out a small group of 6 to 8 format?
Yeah, I think women's ministry is important. I would like to see a smaller group format. I would clarify something I wrote about small groups. I wrote in the cost that it would take, a night a week. And one of the leadership team reminded me that some groups will meet like once every other week. It may not be as strict as that. But I would encourage, 20 is a really big group. Now, you guys may have been together long enough that you've broken through that. The problem is if you've been there together long enough that you can discuss personal things, it becomes really hard for an outsider to come in and be a part of that, because it's breaking into something that's been established for so long. So we'll be looking more in the 8 to 12 type zone.
Last week we attended the conference at Jarvis.
Yes.
And Dr. Neufeld was asked, what is the needs of the church in the 21st century?
Mm-hmm.
He defined 3 needs. Number 1, to deal with the multiculturalism. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is to deal with gender fluidity and sexuality that is pervasive. And number 3 is to conquer the individualism that people spend their time, like myself, 1/3 of my day looking at this box. So I have 2 questions. How does this vision meet the 21st century trends? And the second part, how does this vision in its totality will make us grow spiritually?
Okay, so let me address the first one, the individualism that is kind of pervaded society. Really, small groups and discipleship is going to speak into that. As far as multiculturalism, I really love a multicultural church. When I went to Keswick, north of Toronto, I remember my first week there, or first month there, talking to the kids about, at some point, there'll be some people that are not Anglo-Saxon here. And I remember one of my youth saying, "No, what? What are you talking about? That'll never happen here." And in 20 years, fortunately, we became a little multicultural. Cowork's kind of like where Keswick was. We're starting to gain in some multiculturalism. I think that'll grow. And as that grows, I pray and will do what I can to make sure the church reflects the community. Right now, we are still predominantly Anglo-Saxon, so we reflect our community. But I'm certainly aware of that. And that was the first thing you said. The last thing was the individualism. And the second was the gender issue. Well, discipleship certainly is part of that. Certainly we address those issues in our youth. And you're right, that's not an issue that's going away. But certainly we have position as a church, and we'll continue to, we're not going to change that position, but continue to help people along. Yes?
So over long term, does that mean that you're going to take away the coffee hour Bible study?
No, it doesn't mean that. I think women's ministry is real important, and I think there are avenues where, whether it's women's ministry or men's ministry, where it's good to meet with the same gender in certain settings to grow, and those are good things. So don't misread that. I'm not saying that that's going. For me, that's the same sort of question around Sunday school. Are you trying to get rid of Sunday school? we'll use Sunday school in a particular way, but our main focus is going to be this. So, yeah,
Okay,
no,
thank you.
I'd just like to thank you and all of the board for all that you've done. I'm really excited about the thrust, that the important part, such an important part is our children. I think for every one of us in this room, our most prized possession are our children. What's going to happen? What is our involvement going to be in all of those little children and teens that are over in Northumberland Promise that come from homes with single parents? We did have quite an outreach for these children, and I haven't heard about it, a lot about it, and I'm wondering, have we forgotten all of those children there, or is there still going to be a thrust from our church and from this, from the churches here into Northumberland Promise, because there's so many children over there, and single moms and some single dads that need to be ministered to. So I was wondering, what is our stand on that?
On Northumberland Promise. I have not met with the guys to specifically speak about with them about Northumberland Promise, but as we seek to reach out into our community, that involves looking after those in need. And certainly Northumberland Promise is engaged in that ministry, and you'll see us partner with them as we do that, and it works. And I think for me, part of hiring a pastor to oversee children's ministry gives us an avenue to have someone constantly investing there. Because I've heard the same thing. We've done some stuff with Northumberland Promise, and we haven't heard anything lately. And I've heard that, not just from you, I've heard it from other people. And so to have someone that would be part of that connection would be good. But our goal is to meet the needs of the community, to develop some mercy ministries, and to share our faith, and to do that get outside this building, which includes the area Northumberland Promise is working in. Yes, Mr. Archer. Not Mr. Archer, Mr. Linton. You guys have the same name. Bev.
Okay. I was talking to a fella on Friday night, a big tall guy. His name was Bill. I can't remember his last name, but it could have been Ball. But anyways, he told about the AGC church in Scarborough, Pickering,
Yeah.
that's moving out this way. They have 3,000 members now, and they're going to 10,000. Are we aware of this, and how far east are they going to come?
Yeah.
And they are gaining momentum like crazy.
Yeah. So you're talking about Crothers Creek. C4, as I like to go by. John Thompson, guy I know, grew up with, is the pastor there. I haven't talked to him about how far east he's coming. And his vision is a church of 10,000. That's the vision they're going after. They're doing great work, and I pray that God continues to use them. We're not in competition with C4.
Oh, okay. I thought we would be.
They're preaching the gospel, and the truth is, when you look at any of these communities, I think it's always important to keep this in mind. So you take Cobourg, 20,000, I'm going to ballpark it, 20,000 people. We have 3 evangelical churches. How many churches could Cobourg support? How many churches should be here if we were reaching this community? It should be a whole lot more than 3. It should probably be 30. C4 is doing great work. Some of the thinking that we would have, John and I would share together in philosophy, but I don't know if they have a plan to come this far east. I know they've hit, is it Bowmanville? Newcastle?
Yeah, they're in Bowmanville, and I have inside information. Their next stop is Pickering.
So their next stop is the other side. So I'll let our Pickering churches know. No, that's good.
Okay. The other question is, in the restructuring, where do we see coffee hour being held? Divorce care, grief share, divorce care for children. We need rooms, and it takes me about 2 hours to set up now, and I'm not into lugging a whole bunch of tables around to try and facilitate that. So I wonder what the building committee is saying about where that'll be.
Yeah, so there is no definitive answer. I think there's a couple questions when it comes to all those programs, and some of those questions are whether we will have them meet here or meet in a community setting outside of here, and that really depends on what's advantageous for the program itself. So some programs we may take intentionally and put into the community center where the community center will set up all the rooms, but not for that reason, but because it will better reach the people outside the building. Those people won't come to this building because it's a church. And outside of that, we do have a ton of programs that run inside that have demands as far as space and needs as far as space, not demands, needs as far as space, and we will figure out how to accommodate them in the transition, and what does that look like, and how do we multi-use the spaces we have to meet the ministry programs we're running. So I don't have a distinct, I can't say room, 201, 203, 204, I can't see that at this point, but we will make accommodations to meet those needs of all our ministries as we change the building.
Adding to Ruth's statement for the Northumberland Promise, I heard that they've been having a church, say Saturday nights.
Yep.
I've also heard that they're trying to, I guess, phase that out. So they're spreading out like every 2 weeks meeting, and then they'll go every month. My question is, in regards to them starting up and running and now they're closing or looking to phase out, what went wrong? And for us moving ahead, can we learn anything from them as to how to make our church plant work?
Yeah, I was aware that there was something, the Alliance has been doing something in that area of town, and I knew there was some discussion on where they were headed. I did not know that they were trying to phase it out. Having said that, church plants, statistically, they fail 50% of the time. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, that's the reality. In our fellowship, they have a 90% success rate. Why do they have that kind of success rate? And that's a question I've asked myself quite a bit and looked at what they're doing. The training they put into the site pastors, the accountability, the walking with the site pastors, the helping form the team, the way they processed it is the reason it's been so, God ultimately causes the growth, but the planning they put in, the process they have is the reason it's at 90%. And so we would walk hand in hand with our, Feb Central church planting partners, and they would be a part of training our planter, working with our team. They would help train and do all those things. So that's a huge part of it. They will also at some point contribute financially towards it, helping rent money for a site. That's not why we would partner with them, but that's the main reason for it. You can find church plants that fail all over the place. I hear there's one that failed in Picton. You can find them all over the place. But I do believe that Port Hope can sustain one, and I believe in the process that the fellowship has of that this stands a good chance, a very good chance. And yeah. Come on, are you headed to the mic? You're not. No, he's sitting down. Anybody else have a question? Yes.
Hi, thanks. Thank you for the vision and to the board for all your hard work. It's clear that you've put a lot into this for a long period of time. And so my question is basically around gaining a little bit more clarity on this vision. So I think what I wanted to ask is your vision, the vision, iterative and evolving, or does it have a finite destination? And if it does, what metrics are you going to use to know that you're on the right track, that your trajectory is headed in the right way, so that we are successful?
So your first question, there's kind of a couple questions there. Your first question is there a final destination here?
Correct.
So I'm speaking for me personally at this point. I believe the call of the church is to multiply. We are to be churches that produce churches. So if you were to come to me 10 years from now and say, Port Hope is functioning, Colborne's functioning, I can pretty much guarantee you that if God should still have me here, I'll be saying something like, well, let's talk about it, and I'd have another location in mind. I believe we are to multiply. So is there an end goal in that? Well, there'll always be a new end goal. Certainly there are measurables in this vision, 70% in small groups. I can measure that. Our goal is to see 0.5% of Cobourg saved. Okay, I can measure that. I realize God plays the primary role in that, but I can measure that. Establishing a church by the spring of 2020, I can measure that. There are measurables there, and there are far more measurables and smaller goals that we haven't kind of processed goals that just didn't make sense to bring here, steps along the process. So we have those. I'm a firm believer that you need a goal. You need to know who's in charge of the goal and how you're going to know when you're going to get there, and that you need all those. So you really don't have that small detail here. It's not that that hasn't been thought through. It's just we would bore you with
Thank you.
80 steps. So if you have a question, make your way towards a mic, because in a minute I'm going to say only those behind the mics get questions, because we're almost at an hour. Go ahead.
In response to Andrew's thing, Port Hope really needs a church. I believe there really is only one, I would estimate, that is evangelical. And I have, as a Gideon member, 2 Canada Days, I went to the town park. I came home with pamphlets and didn't give out much stuff, even though I had prayed about it. I prayed the whole time I was there. Port Hope is a very difficult community to reach, and I've heard that several times. And in Cobourg, I find it a little easier. The guys would go, and they would run out of material. Port Hope, no. I had a visitor from Ireland who was visiting relatives in Port Hope. Had a great conversation with him. He didn't take anything. And I had a couple that were on Rice Lake. She came as a child. They did take pamphlets and things. And I mean, I took gimmicks with me, like for kids. If the kids would come over, sometimes you would get the adults. Like I took a moose and anything to do with Canada Day and stuff like that. And then the kids would come over and, you know, check out your stuff. And then the adults, you could get a chance to talk. But Port Hope, living there for 10 years and then moving out 7 kilometers, I find it is a very proud community and they are hard to reach. Another kind of suggestion that I might make is when I was looking after my sister in Kingston a few years ago, I attended the Fellowship Baptist Church there in the West End. And one neat thing they had, I found, and if they're going to reach out to unbelievers, the 2 pastors that were there that Sunday, I think it's once a month, they have a hot seat thing where people can put their questions in beforehand. And these 2 pastors had said they were of Catholic background. And the questions that people asked, I thought it was great. It gave people a chance, especially unbelievers. Believers, you know, it's okay, but unbelievers have a lot of questions and they may not come in, they may not get a chance to ask the pastor one-on-one, but when they had that Sunday and they could put their question in ahead of time, I thought the pastors answered them very well with really good answers. So I don't know whether you would know those pastors.
Yeah,
Probably
I know
have
them.
felt,
Yeah. No, that's certainly creative and things we can look at as we seek to reach our community. Going once. Going twice. Sold. So if you have more questions, I have an email, I have a phone number. By all means, call me. I am happy to interact. I think the vision we've presented is one that is very stretching, but I think it is something that God would have us do, and I think we will see God move mightily in our midst. And so as you look at this, and as you think, you know, is this a vision I could get behind? I pray that you'd really spend time praying about that and consider the cost of it, but that you would take that step. You know, see small groups as an avenue to disciple, see our children as important, that we would want to hire someone to take that and oversee outreach. You know, look at our discipleship in small groups as far as a staff person in Ben that could run with that. See us expand our social media platform to reach young people through Caroline. And there are 6 motions before you. You'll get another letter from me this week, probably, because I apparently like to write letters. So I encourage you to read that. But you'll be voting on the 14th and 18th. And it's real important that you vote. So would you do that? Take a vision book. Learn our vision statement. And we look forward to seeing what God has in store. Let me just pray. Father, I thank you that we are your church and that we are your people. And Lord, as we seek to follow you, as we seek to do what you've designed us to do, to disciple the saved and to reach the lost with the gospel. I pray that you would work through us to do that in this community, in Cobourg and Port Hope and Brighton and Colborne and Northumberland, that we would be a church that would be a light for you, where people would come to know you and we would see them grow in their faith. Father, I pray for those who are here. Pray especially for the members, those that will vote. Lord, I pray that you would give them discernment and wisdom as they do so. And we ask all this in your Son's name. Amen. Thank you. Oh, Ben has something he'd like to say on his small stool.
Two quick things. One, in regards to membership, if you're not a member and you're really interested, can I give a plug for a membership class that's going to start on the 18th? And it's 2 weeks. It's 2 one-hour sessions. We provide breakfast and coffee and tea for you, so that's like incentive there. But come on out. You're not signing up for becoming a member, but it's information about our church, information about how to become a member. So if you get excited about all this and say, I want to be involved and part of that, then come on out to our classes. And the other thing is, I realized that the job descriptions, we ran out of them at the back. I'm printing off some more. So if you want to grab one, I have some more that are running off the photocopier right now. And any of those things, if you notice that we've run out, just ask us and we can make sure you get a copy of all that information.